Chapter 19. Another Encounter. In the silence of our sudden stillness, we could both hear the whoosh-swish of something big coming through the grass and bushes, back to the north of the creek. It stopped, apparently aware that we had gone into the defensive silence mode. I suppose we'd been pretty noisy up till then. I softly pulled the sling from my diaper and loaded a stone. Cubby swiveled her head like a radar, zeroing in where the sounds had come from, and started coming from again, slower and more cautiously this time, but big things can only be so quiet. Then it stopped, and a big feline head with really big fangs poked out from the bushes beneath two moderate-sized cypress trees. Not fangs like the La Brea tar pit's saber-toothed tigers, but maybe half as long and curved like the scimitars in the Lawrence of Arabia. Where the hell did that come from? While MIZ had those shining blue eyes full of intelligence and mystery, this guy's obsidian black eyes had a shock value all their own. Their cold stare, locked onto Cubby, was simply murderous. Cubby froze. The sling made a low buzz as I wound it up. At 15 meters or so, I knew my accuracy would be only fair. The whirring and the motion finally distracted the big boy's attention from its intended lunch to me. "Hey, big fellow, want a rock in your face?" I sort of shouted. The cat seemed to jerk slightly at the unfamiliar noise of a human voice. I let the rock fly, and it went in several inches below the face and made a dull thunk against some part of the creature's body. Up it flew. This leaping animals thing was getting repetitive. I say flew because that big cat went straight up, like I've seen my neighbor's cat do way in the future there, with my slightly cruel neighbor sliding a book across the floor at the poor thing. In this case, it was way more impressive. Bigger cat, and a completely weird roar as accompaniment, but it was exactly the same move as the neighbor's cat's. Another stone was in the sling pocket. I had no idea how it got there. It flew, and there was even more adrenaline behind it. Whap! Right below the ear as the beast hit the ground in a perfect cat crouch. Over it rolled, pawing at the side of its head where I had smacked it. I noticed Cubby had belly-crawled behind me. Another stone was magically loaded, and I started the wind-up. "Wait," came a command that was impossible not to follow. I grabbed the stone pocket before it reached speed and looked around. Cubby was looking south. I followed her gaze and saw MIZ trotting along the creek toward us. She went right past us and to Scimitar Tooth. It was clearly distracted by the blow to the head, swiping repeatedly at its ear and looking all around uncoordinated. It occurred to me that in another circumstance I could be all over it with a spear before it shook off the effects of being rock-clobbered. That sling is a mighty weapon, and I was a lucky human to have become competent with it back when I was young enough to burn in the learning. MIZ moved like a pro wrestler, rapidly circling the writhing scimitar tooth once, then straddled him, her huge mouth grasping the back of its neck. The lion I stoned showed impressive judgment by becoming completely still, the universal signal of capitulation. I have a friend whose favorite word is tableau. He uses it to excess, shouting, "A tableau!" a lot. People kissing and not moving much, "A tableau!" Bored people in a long line, "A tableau!" I thought he might have a slight case of Tourette's. Looking at the amazing spectacle of an American great lioness, who I knew personally, holding down an equally large male lion with scimitar fangs for long seconds, moved me. "A tableau," I whispered to Cubby. I could feel Cubby's mind sniffing around the word. "Careful, MIZ," I mouthed. She gave the scimitar tooth a small shake with her head, then slowly released her potentially fatal grip. The male stayed still as she raised her head. "Good boy," came from her brilliantly blazing mind. Could the male hear her? I thought maybe partially. His black eyes blinked, fluttered, sort of. MIZ let out one of her bone-shaking roars. The male was silent. "Enough said," he seemed to me to say. Then, totally surprising me, and I bet the big male, MIZ leaned over and licked several times right below his ear, exactly where my second stone had hit. Then she just walked over him and back toward us, completely ignoring her recent conquest, as was her style. I spread out the leaves around the big catfish's remains. MIZ crunched down 2 huge bites, leaving about a foot of tail section. "For him?" I asked, nodding toward the still quiet male. "Yes." I stood and tossed the hunk to the big male, still prone where MIZ had pinned him. The fish piece landed within a foot of his nose. He rose to his feet and gathered himself, looking everywhere except at us, then turned as though to walk away. Hurt pride, I thought. Then with one smooth move he suddenly reached back and took the fish bit and downed it in one huge swallow. Then he walked into the bush.